There you go. So, yeah.
Sorry. We usually do that, but anyway, go ahead.
It's all right. It's all good. It's all good.
We'll just
I do
jump.
too. I actually have the same one. So, what can I say? I mean,
Let me
you know,
do
kind
an
of
introduction. What
yeah.
we're going to do.
Okay,
So
let's do an introduction.
we did last week. We did the first half of critiquing Trent Horn and what he said on it was the debate. The red pill is a dead pill. So we've had some pre-show discussions here about what the red pill is. So, is this stream red pill? Well, yeah, we've kind of identified with that, for lack of a better thing, but maybe we're more red pill adjacent. We certainly don't agree with the morals of the red pill. So tonight is the second half of that stream, or going through that, and we have invited Grid One to join us tonight. And this is our first collaboration, and we've never worked together before, so we'll see how this goes. Could be a good, a little bit of debate in this one, which is fun.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Grid One.
Well, I go by Grid One. I have a channel called The Unreasonable Man. It's or An Unreasonable Man, which is based around a George Bernard Shaw quote from 1907. And it's a very interesting podcast that I've had going on now for about 2.5 months or so. It's kind of just rocketed away from me, and it's just one of those. It's kind of been one of those things where I've grown a lot, and I tend to have very specific views on things, and it's a, I guess people want to hear them. So.
All right, so I have it queued up to where we left off last time, roughly. I did have to resuscitate it because StreamYard doesn't save anything. So
okay,
I will go ahead and we're just going to start playing it, and I'll see where the cuts are.
Praise. So men, Pearl is sort of like an inverted porn star to them, frankly. That I find that those men who just hate women, they like porn stars for the same reason they like Pearl. It gives them something that makes them feel good while they can disrespect the person giving it to them. Like the men who like Pearl, who hate women, they don't respect her. They just like that she's willing to exploit herself as a woman to make them feel good, just like porn stars will do.
Relationship.
And that's what I said before, where it's
okay. Grid One, I actually wanted to get your thoughts on that porn star comment, because that's where we left off last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have actually what I hope is reasonable insight into that. I find it very interesting that this is one of the areas where Knowles and Trent Horn kind of diverge. Knowles, I think, respects Pearl on some level and understands that she is acting at least in a moral way, and as far as she is concerned. I do believe that they're unhappy that she's left the Catholic Church, but that's a Catholic thing, and it doesn't matter who you are. If you leave the church, they hate you for it. So it's just wait, just get over it, right? It doesn't matter if you go to a different church or you're still, whatever. It's that they just, as far as they're concerned, you're never right again. The problem that I have with Horn is he's wrong about Pearl. And he knows he's wrong, but he made a mistake a long time ago, and I'm sure we don't have the clip of it or anything. But he basically did call Pearl a grifter and a liar and all of these things, which has all been disproven because Pearl has been demonetized.
Mm-hmm.
She's independently well off, so she doesn't need YouTube to pay her. Or anyone to pay her. I mean, it's nice. I'm sure, as you all may expect, it's nice to get paid for your work when you put effort in. But I don't think that's why she does it, and I think he knows it. And this is one of the problems I have with Horn. Horn is so committed to the bit, if you will. He's a stage actor, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. He's a stage
Okay.
actor, and he's so committed to the bit that he will not back down. He will not back up. He will not back. If you can find an example of where he said, "Nope, I'm sorry, I was wrong about this. I'm totally sorry, guys. I was absolutely incorrect about Pearl, and I never should have likened her to a whore." If you could find a clip of that ever in the thousands of hours of film this guy has, and I'm not saying just about Pearl, I'm talking about anything. If he's ever said, "You know what, I was wrong about that," or retract that statement, I'm sorry. I would love to see it.
Well,
Because
One other,
so
one
this
other
video is
thing
only
about,
about 3 weeks old.
I'm sorry.
Oh, this video is only about 3 weeks old. So
Right. Well, I'm saying he's got he's got a decade of material out there, right?
yeah.
Roughly
yeah.
a
One other
decade.
thing about Trent, he works for Catholic Answers,
Mhm.
and that website or that entity has been around for a long time. Many years ago, I was on the Catholic Answers forum. They had a lot of forums and back and forth before this YouTube phenomena started. But there was a lot of tone policing. And I think the primary audience of Catholic Answers is Catholic women. So I think he's kind of playing to that audience as
Sure.
well.
And how
But-
do you
but-
know that, Steve?
That's my perception. And that's because I got tone policed off of the forums, and a couple female friends who were manosphere related. When you talked about things that irritated the women, they got you booted.
I mean, I don't know that I can go that far personally, but I don't think that Horn ever admits he's wrong about something. Even if he knows that he's wrong, I just don't think he would ever come out and say, "I'm wrong about this. Pearl's actually a really good person. I watched her." Okay, so look, if you take Andrew Wilson, for example, he said before, "Hey, you know what? I don't agree with Destiny, but he makes good points, or he makes good arguments, and he will correct you if you say something bad about Destiny that's not true." Andrew will say, "No, that's not how Destiny operates." And I've watched him do that many times. You take Trent Horn, and arguably these are the two same people, right? They're both religious. They both are platform. They both talk. They both, to some degree, debate. Andrew, I think, better than Horn. So these are directly equal sums, right? Horn never says that. If you go after somebody that he doesn't like, or that he's debated against as a leftist, or as a of course he doesn't really have a problem with feminism, but somebody that he's debated against, if you say something bad about them, like, I heard that, or what, I just don't like the way such and so always puts the red pill first, or whatever it is, he will never disagree with you and say, "No, that's not how this actually happens." Whereas someone like Andrew, who is moral, who is real, will absolutely correct you. And this is what we lack in Trent Horn. This is why I think, and I think that I think I told Steve the other day, I find Trent Horn irrelevant, pedantic, and just really not worth listening to, because he says the same thing over and over and over and over, and he never, ever apologizes when he's wrong, and he's wrong quite a bit. So and those kind of people aren't worth listening to in the global scheme of things, and he's really just boring. But anyway, we can keep going.
Let's
Again, but I
get to
think
the
the thing
next
about
clip.
Pearl, though, is that I think that he's not I think the thing is he's not threatened by Pearl. Pearl, can go after him, and she can say things about him, but he's not threatened by Pearl. He doesn't care, and that's just the way it is. So, he'll say whatever he wants to about Pearl,
Well,
But now
well-
Lauren Chin, who panders to the same donors he does, he will never say anything bad about Lauren Chin, ever. Not one word. Guaranteed.
which is why I think we should be careful who we listen to. Listen to who they critique and who they won't critique. I think that's a great lesson.
Not just the men, the women also contribute to this if they pursue men in a superficial way, that there are men, men desire a superficial caricature of women based on looks. But growing up, I remember when we were all in our dating sphere, my cohort of friends, now we're in our late 30s, early 40s. When we were in our early 20s, I remember just the dating game, trying to figure out who you liked. The women I was friends with who, were very attractive, I knew a lot of them would go out with guys who were also very attractive, but because of that, they could be arrogant, or they weren't just the best. They weren't the most virtuous men, but they liked those superficial traits of them, and they're these very attractive men. But then later they eventually hit reality, realize, no, this just makes me sad. And those women I know who are very attractive, a lot of them now are married to guys. I'm going to be honest, they're nerds. They're nerds.
Yeah.
But those women are so happy. Those guys are probably on the look scale, I'd say 2 to 3 points below them, but they have good jobs. They're devoted. They're caring. And those women are just completely and absolutely happy. And they're attracted to their husbands. They didn't marry just like total like goons or something. They're just not these chads, but they're still good and nice, solid guys. They're just kind of nerdy, but the women are clearly happy. So like part of my advice is for men to have realistic expectations, but women too, if you see this as a problem, you too can be guilty of these things. You have to keep an eye out for that.
Okay. Doesn't that imply that when women get older and after they've had their fun days, they get serious around late 20s and go for the guys that they overlooked? And, isn't that called settling?
So I have a theory. Do you guys want to hear? And this is something that I came up with through personal experience. And I had I ran a bunch of shops, and I had a lot of young men work for me over the years, and some young women, but mostly young men. And this is my conclusion. If a young man is not married by the time he's 23 to 24, he needs to shelf that shit. And he needs to not worry about marriage and not worry about women until he's in his 30s. He needs to go out. He needs to build his life. He needs to do whatever he needs to do to make himself a better human being and able to provide for somebody. And when he's in his 30s and he's settled and he has a job, he has a career, he has position, then he goes back to dating. And because women who haven't married by the time they're 23, 24, they become really toxic because they've been used. Some of them have been married and divorced already. They get a lot of really bad habits. And I can't tell you the number of young men that I've watched on the phone telling their new girlfriend or new wife or whatever, hey, I got to work 2 hours over. I got to work 3 hours of overtime. I got to work this. I got to work that. And getting just absolutely hammered by the woman on the other end of the phone that had no consideration for what this man had to go through to put food on the table, to keep the house, to keep the bills paid, and absolutely didn't appreciate it. So you're just better off as a man if you aren't. And now the thing is if you marry between about 18 to 22, 23, then you're both relatively kind of the same. You both understand the struggle. You both understand, you don't have anything, all of that kind of thing. But once women start getting into that older range, maybe they've dated some guys that have had some money, and now they expect you, who, and you may not, right? Or they may have dated guys with no money, and all of a sudden they date you that have a real job, and now they expect to not have to work at all because you have a real job and they don't. And so I just find that that's a very interesting time frame in a man's life that he needs to ignore women altogether.
Well, so I married a woman, my first marriage, and it was a lot like that. And I've worked so I grew up in a shop myself, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's only gotten worse. But what this really is saying is that, because you have to consider that what's the average age of marriage for a woman now? Like 27?
It's 27, 28, something like that.
Yeah.
And it goes up every year. So I think it might be 28 and it might be 29. I haven't checked recently.
Right.
I thought I heard 30 for some reason, but I could be wrong.
I think that might have been for men, but
maybe.
So if you look at that 18 to 22, what you're really talking about is the woman's decided that she's not going to go to college. Okay, that's already a great setup because she's not going to get the high level feminist indoctrination boot camp. So you're probably already looking at a woman who's kind of rare. So, it's like, I agree with you, but I think we need to be careful to say, okay, this is not normative for how women behave today.
Can I?
And you have to be careful.
Let me throw some more gasoline on this fire. I like setting fires, I like throwing grenades, and we're gonna do it. So, in my personal life, I lived this. So when I was in my early 20s, I almost got married twice. The first time, the young lady I was that was my fiance at the time, she had her mother passed, and she just kind of wanted to erase that last few years of her life. And now a lot of men would have been like, no, you got to stick in there and just hang out and just don't go away, whatever. But I understood from an early age on, when a woman doesn't want you around anymore, don't be around. It's not worth the trouble. So I kind of was like, all right, cool, we're done, no problem. Try to be her friend. That was a bad idea on my part. That it was not tenable for me. I think she wanted that relationship to continue, but I did not in that fashion. And then I about 2 years later, I had another young lady, and we were really, really close. And she ended up having she rolled a car and had basically a near-death experience, and she freaked out.
Oof.
And once they want to leave, man, just let them leave, right? Like, it had nothing to do with me. It had nothing to do with the relationship. It had nothing to do with anything, but just mentally they were shot, right? And I took that as a sign, to be honest with you. I was like, you know what? I'm just not meant to be getting married. Well, first, I honestly thought I was not meant to get married. And so what I did is for the next 10 years or so, 10, 12 years, 13 years, whatever, I didn't seriously date. I didn't want to. I was too busy building my life. And I lived in ways that women would not tolerate, right? Like, I spent money in ways that most women would be, of course, I gauge fights in hours, right? So I gauge disagreements in hours. I'm going to burn up arguing about it. And so, these were like 10, 12-hour arguments at minimum,
Oof, dude.
And at the kind of things that I was spending money on, the kind of things the choices I made, the kinds of things I did in my life. So I just decided not to do that. And not to date women that were, quote, I'm using air quotes here, marriage material. I made a conscious decision to not do that and not risk it, not be a part of it. And then when I was 34, I decided that, you know what, I'm established, everything's great, my life is great, I'm stable. Let's go find a wife. And I was married within a year and a half. And
so
I've been married 19 years.
Excellent. So somebody from your channel has a comment in here that I think is germane to what you're talking about. So I'll pull it up here. Men should marry and have still children starting at age 18. But the government, the government's devaluing the currency.
I disagree that if you haven't married, if you are not in a good, successful marriage by the age of 22, 23, you need to unplug, brother, and you need to do what's best for you. Go take that 7 month.
What's so ironic? Yeah, sorry, just real fast. What's ironic is they don't understand when it comes.
I see what happened. StreamYard bugged out, guys. Sorry.
That's all right. There is an irony here in that if you and your wife get married young enough, then you grow together, you face things together, and you do everything together, and it's always together. But once the women get a little older and they're a little more, and I hate to use the term exposed, but that's really what it is. Mm-hmm. Once they get into that kind of mind frame, it's really toxic, man. It's really toxic. And I don't think that you can do anything about it. I'd really like to say that I was wrong about it, but I've watched this for I watched this for a decade, and it's just this age range, man. Age range, and then of course once a guy gets in his 30s, if he hasn't been married, then he gets back in the dating pool, and then all of those 24-year-old women that or 22-year-old women, 23-year-old women that he was like they're awesome. This is who I should marry. Then all of them actually want to marry him, because he is stable, he can provide, he's everything that they really wanted the first time around.
At that point, he's got the age difference,
Right.
and a little bit more dominance, and so there is a natural hierarchy.
Yeah.
But if a woman approaches late 20s,
Yeah.
she has a greater tendency towards rebellion.
Baggage. We call it
at that.
baggage. Call it baggage.
Well,
Right, and-
baggage causes her to act in a more rebellious way.
And baggage fees keep going up, guys. Baggage fees they aren't going down. Baggage fees is going up.
Well, and you see that I think there's also an aspect here of the more we, particularly early in our lives, we live our lives a certain way, it's a lot easier to just keep living that way. So you get these strong, independent women who've been living their lives. They were independent in college. They got a job right out of college. They don't need nobody. And so in my opinion, it's very hard to build a marriage where neither side needs anything from each other. It's like you're just kind of cohabitating at that point, right?
Well, I mean, that's a very long discussion, because
oh yeah,
my wife and I don't need anything from each other but each other. She doesn't need my money. I don't, that we don't need each other in that way. And I think that it's an interesting dynamic. It's a long conversation. We can't do it tonight. I'd love to do it, but we can't do it tonight. It's a great conversation.
That probably takes a higher level of maturity.
But when you're young, all right, let me throw this out there to you. Let's say you're 24 years old, and some of you guys probably lived this. You're 24 years old and you've been working, you get out of college, you got a crappy out of college job. You're making $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year. And all of a sudden the chance comes up for you to move across country. It's not a real guarantee of anything hardcore, but it's a really good opportunity. And you being a male and having that drive and that foresight, if you will, said, you know what, this is it. I need to do this. If you are single, you get in your car and you drive the fuck across country and you take the job and you make your life. If you were married, you have a 12-hour fight about it for 3 days. 12 hours a day for 3 days. You're going to fight about it. And eventually she's going to wear you down to where you're like, you know what? It's not even worth doing. I'm not even going to do it.
It hits home in many ways.
Yep.
I had those same fights too with my ex.
I've watched this over and over, guys. I'm telling you, I had this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I dodged a lot. I say I dodged a lot of bullets. I made a conscious decision when I was younger that I wasn't going to get married. I wasn't going to date for marriage until I dated for marriage. The only reason I went out with my wife to start with is, do you guys remember internet dating? Steve and I are probably about the oldest guys here, but so we had internet dating, and her profile said that she was looking for marriage. She was the only one of like 20 profiles that said anything about marriage. And that was the only reason I went out with her. I mean, she was cute, but there were a lot of cute ones. But the only reason I went out with her was that she was talking about marriage in the profile. If she hadn't done that, I wouldn't have gone out with her. And so, it's it's an interesting thing, right? I mean, we as men lie to ourselves a lot, whether we want to admit it or not. We lie to ourselves because what we want is we want to believe that we are not wrong about the women that we choose to let into our lives.
Absolutely.
And we'll lie to ourselves over and over and over and over and over again. And when you really should punch out, especially as a young man, because as a young man, you're like, hey, I'm finally getting laid. And I mean, like, regularly. Like, I have, like, this is not like a, I mean, this part of it's great, but she's ruining my fucking life. Like, I'm about to get fired next week. If I get one, I've had this conversation with young men where I've said, if your woman calls you one more time when you're on the clock, I am firing you. You need to get your shit locked down. And I fired them. They lost their jobs because of a woman calling them incessantly. Okay. I've watched this over and over and over again. And this is how it really works. Now, this isn't ivory tower shit. This isn't Fifth Avenue shit. This is normal human beings interacting on a daily life. This is a guy in IT that gets 20 emails a day from his girlfriend wondering when the hell he's going to be home while he's got 4 servers crashing and he doesn't know what the fuck he's going to do because he's about to get fired because he can't fix this damn problem. And there's zero sympathy, guys. There's zero sympathy for that. Now I'm gonna reverse this because all the women in the audience are ready to fucking cut my nuts off. So here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. If a woman calls you up and says, "Hey, I have to work late. So and so didn't show up for her shift. I'm gonna have to work late. I'm really sorry." As a man, you say, "You know what? That sucks. That's terrible. You want me to bring you dinner? You want me to do anything? Do you need anything? Can I help you out?" And that's the fucking difference right there. And this is what Trent Horn doesn't get. He looks at this from Wall Street. He looks at this from a high level, $100,000 a year and up, guys, right? And he's not looking at it at a $40,000 a year guy whose girlfriend works at an office somewhere making $40,000 a year, and they're trying to make it. And this is the disconnect that there is in what he says and what is.
Well, Trent seems to love the oughts and doesn't really seem to do well with the ises of the world. And it's funny you bring up the thing about taking your wife dinner. I actually did that once for my wife. She had to pull a late shift, and she's like, "Oh, could you bring me coffee? It's going to be a long night." And so it was after my work, so I just did it on the way home. And I mean, she was real happy about it, of course, and her coworkers thought it was all sweet and nice. But good Lord, you do not win anything with women for that, guys. I'm sorry, you might win for a day, but she isn't going to remember that when she decides it's time to cut you loose.
I never said she'd remember it. I said that's how we deal with it as men.
Yeah.
Right.
The way that men handle problems is different. We find solutions. You've got to work late. You know what? I know what that's like. Do you want some food? Do you want me, is there something, do I need to go pick up the dog from the sitter? Do I need, what needs to happen to solve this problem? Right. Whereas on the other side of that, if you call up and say, "Honey, I'm going to be late. I got shit to do." There's literally nothing. It is a very rare woman who's going to say, "Oh, okay. Can I bring you dinner? Are you going to have time to go get something to eat? Do you need somebody to run by and check on your mom? Because I know you were going to do that after work." That's not how it's not how the average woman thinks. They like to think that they do. Hear me out. They don't.
I agree from experience. There's a point here in the comments I wanted to bring up, and I have seen this data. So divorce rates in the early 20s are over 30%, and then it does drop as we get into late 20s, early 30s. And I think that goes back to the whole, they go to college, get feminized, and, then they decide that they need to leave that guy. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Well, I think that, again, this is something that Horn tends to gloss over, is that young marriages are tough. That's why women wait. That's one of the reasons why women are waiting later and later. I mean, education's another reason. We can get into that. That's another very long discussion.
Yes.
And actually, I'm going to do a show specifically on it because one of my wife's friends is in her 20s. She is she got a degree from Columbia, and she is at the crossroads between, does she take a couple 3, 4, 5 years off to start a family and get her family moving before she goes ahead with her profession? And I think it's in the medical field. I don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. It could be finance. It could be whatever. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. It's not my or does she go straight into her career and pray that she finds a man that will put up with her later?
That's a tough question for girls.
Right. And I'm going to have her on the show at some point, on my show at some point, and we're going to do a whole show based around her. So young marriages fail, basically because, again, I think that if we could do the married at 18, if they make it past 21, if we could do that dynamic, I think that you'd find that they tend to last. Not all of them, obviously, but I mean, look, it's just the way it is. I like that. I like it when people throw that stat out, and because I came from an era where I want to say something like 60, maybe 70% of my graduating class was in high school was married by fall when college started. So, and a bunch of those people got divorced. There was a bunch of problems. There was DV, there was just all kinds of craziness, but there was also some really good relationships. But again, I just find it that for men, if you have not done it, if you're not in that relationship and locked in and in a good relationship, then by the time you're 23, bail. Just stop. Just don't do it.
Well, go ahead.
Good. No. I'm sorry.
I have a cousin who did exactly that. Got married young. They're still together. They have kids, nice, stable. He had a bit of an advantage though economically. His dad owned a business. He had a job at the business, and so he was able to provide for his wife day one. And I know we're not going to get into it tonight, and both sides, well, particularly the TradCon side, just absolutely misses how hard it is for men to, particularly young, come out and provide for a family. Like in my state, a family of 4, they did the math on this for 2023. It's $250,000 a year, Scott, to raise a family of 4. So, most guys, 18 fresh out of college, they're making 30. So we have a few orders of magnitude to go there, and it didn't used to be that way.
Right.
You could get a job working metal,
and the expectations are higher, but the opportunities for a young man are pretty low. You got to really put in your time and work your way up.
Well, so I think practically a lot of guys. Yeah. Well, I think practically that's why so many guys end up waiting, because by the time you're 36, you can pull maybe not 250,000, but in the right field, 100,000 shouldn't be a problem, right? And that's enough. But we have to wait till your early 30s, mid 30s to get there. And so again, it's a lot. Yeah, you're right. It's a long conversation. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole today. But
the only reason I really wanted to kind of poke holes in, I brought this up because I dislike the way Trent portrays marriage in general, and I really dislike how the way that people talk about it is very canned, and I don't think it's accurate anymore. And I don't think the advice that Trent I know the advice that Trent gives, and Michael Knowles to some degree also gives. I don't really put Horn and Knowles in the same category. Knowles, I think, is a good guy trying to do good things, and he's a real guy. Horn is an actor, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, and I don't take him seriously. I take Knowles seriously. Like, Knowles believes what he says. He will admit if he's wrong, and everything's, you know, he's a real dude. I've never heard
I think that's
anybody
fair.
call Trent Horn a real dude. Like he's like real at all. Like he's just manufactured. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know.
Well, it certainly comes out in these videos. Like he throws out stats, and then you actually, we did one, it was a different one where he was with his debate on Pearl, and he threw out a divorce statistic, and we were digging to figure out where he got the number from because it's a number no one's ever quoted. And he actually, turns out he actually just misread the statistic. You know, it's like he said, "Oh, well, it's the number of divorces."
He's an actor.
This.
He got the wrong script.
Yeah, exactly. He got the wrong number and just threw it out there because it looked good for him.
Well,
All
let's watch the next clip, and then we'll have
Yeah,
something
right.
more to talk about.
Yeah.
Comes to being valued, there's a trope. I said this in my debate with Pearl, and I still believe that it's true. It's a bit crude, but it's just the way the world is. Women control access to sex, and men control access to marriage. Like they did a study on a college campus where they had a woman go up to 100 guys and say, "Hey, do you want to have sex with me?" 75% of the guys said they would, like right in that moment. And the other 20% said, "Not right now, but I have a test, but please in 2 hours." And a guy did it to 100 women. Not a single one agreed to have sex with him. But if a guy just goes out and says, like, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" I've seen this in videos where women will just like give him their number. Like, okay. Like they're excited by, oh, here's a guy not saying I'll have sex with you. Like, I'll be in a relationship with you. That it's women, you know, women can get sex if they just advertise it because men are men, you know, it's just how they are. But when it comes to they can't get marriage in that way, but men are the ones who ask and pursue and give marriage. So as a man, your ability to provide, like Rollo wants to, he basically wants to turn men into women. Like the modern feminist idea of women just being on birth control, being a boss babe.
Yep.
He wants men to just be infertile. Like the modern feminist ideal is woman's infertile. She's a career climber. She can do boss babe, all this stuff. What Rollo wants is for men to be the same, to be the male equivalent, be infertile, conquer a bunch of women, get a bunch of money, but you're not offering the actual thing, marriage and family, that is the unique, valuable thing men can give women.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack there, guys. First thing is there was no survey. All right, that was whatever. That was Brian at whatever, who used to do prank videos. That was one of his prank videos where Brian Atlas from whatever podcast went out. This was when he was in, I think he was in college at that point. He looked way younger. He literally asked, I think 100 random women, "Do you want to go have sex?" And they all shut him down. I think he had one like, "Well, I'll consider it." Where he had a female co-star, whatever she was. It was like, I think all but a few said, "Yeah, we'll go right now." Like, or, you know, let me get off work and I'm out the door. You know, let's do this. And so that it's hilarious that they're literally citing the whatever podcast for this information. That is pretty fucked up. But the other thing that he kind of goes into is what Rollo says. Now look, I don't particularly care for Rollo. I don't think he's a bad guy. But you know, I mean, we're not buddies, right? Like I don't know him. He doesn't know me. We haven't had dinner. I just, you know, we're not buddies, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like he's wrong on some things, and that's fine. You know, if anybody be very suspicious if anybody agrees with you. But the thing is Rollo's never fucking said that. He simply acknowledged the fact that men have the ability to date many different women to find the woman that fits their personality without, you know, without the same stressors that women have, right? They don't lose the ability to pair bond. There's, you know, obviously no risk of a man getting pregnant. We're just different. All Rollo really does is acknowledge that men are not women. And somebody should tell Trent that, because I think he might be a little confused, because he seems to have this very feminist viewpoint that men and women are the same, and we're not. We're very, very different. And so while I don't agree with Rollo's stance that you can just go out and have as much sex as you want, certainly I am not a shining example for well, pretty much anything. I'm not a good example of anything. And certainly not celibacy. I was never very good at that.
Trent has said many times, well, women are equal in dignity before God. And
Sure.
then he uses that to extrapolate women and men are equal in everything, and he's an egalitarian.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's wrong.
And that's, yeah, well, obviously.
So the problem that we really have with this now is you now have men that shame other men for the number of women they've slept with, and you have women attempting to shame men for the number of women that they've slept with. However, if a man didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. With a woman, you can sometimes tell because she has children out of wedlock. Sometimes you can tell because she cannot have good relationships because she's lost the ability to pair bond. And she just moves from one relationship to the other. In any case, men and women are not the same. We're not better or worse. We're just different. We're just different, guys. That's it.
Which brings up the point. We're not advocating promiscuity for men either. It just doesn't.
At least not over here.
We are not. We just recognize reality, but we're not advocating that or saying it's a good thing.
Hey, Nick, you were saying something earlier, but I think you were muted.
He might still be muted.
Yeah, he's still muted.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I press buttons. All right. So
normally I interact with my chat a lot more. They're going absolutely nuts. And I'm unfortunately, I've got it up on my big screen there, so I can't really see it as well as I'd like, which is fine.
Well, I'm keeping an eye on it.
Let me call out Arthur Daya. Arthur Daya, I don't care that you find it horribly unfair. Life isn't fucking fair. Telling young boys that it is a Chad move to be able to have sex with women is not the end of the world. Half of our fucking literature throughout history, from the beginning of time, tells young men to go out and be fucking Chads. Whether we call them Chad or not, that's what it is. The entire Romantic era was written around men going out and having sex with women. And that was in the 1700s. It's a long damn time ago. So let's please dial it back, okay? Let's just dial it back to reality. It's okay. You don't have to like it. I understand it's unfair. It's unfair. I get it. Life isn't fair. It's never been fair. I don't want it to be fair. I honestly don't want life to be fair. I want men to go out and be able to fuck up and learn. I want women to have some measure of chastity because they provide life. That's what I need in life. I need men to go out and wrestle bears. I need women to stay home and not do that. I don't understand how that's so hard. I don't get it.
Yeah.
So
and regarding the streams, we're not very good at engaging with our stream over here. Hey, we're a channel with 24 viewers, so we haven't really gotten into that. We just get into the debates. So apologies to Grid One stream people in the chat, but
don't worry about them. They'll argue amongst themselves. Don't worry, they'll keep themselves entertained. They don't need.
So I was going to say about what I was going to say about the thing going off and talk to 100 women is you're also they're mistaking this idea that women are going to be attracted to that type of approach. Not that women don't want to have sex, and they actually have it, if you go by the numbers, more than the men in college. they're not asking what would attract a woman, not just a guy is ready to go, bing, bada, boom. Hey, you want to have sex? Sure, let's go. Now, a woman likes to being approached. They don't like that necessarily the big. I don't know. There's a red pill term for this. It's like the direct approach. Is that
I don't know.
guys?
It sounds right, but women love to be gamed.
That's right. So there's a reason why he got 100 no's or 99 no's and maybe one maybe. So
Well, to that
off-putting.
point, if you watch whatever, he still does a version of that bit. He did it again on last night, where he asked all the girls, would you date anybody in the room? And they would you date Nick? Would you date me? And they all said no.
Well,
So
usually somebody will super chat in or there's somebody that finds it funny to make Brian ask that. You can see it kind of makes Brian uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
there's a regular that, and I don't know who it is. I mean, I know their screen name, but that doesn't mean I don't actually know who the person is. But they find it funny to do that. I think it's hilarious too, but I'm not the one doing it. I just think it's funny.
it's not any of us here either.
Yeah, but it is funny to make him do it because it makes him uncomfortable and it makes the girls for a moment feel like they can giggle and get away with it.
Yep.
So I just find that you know what, you guys need to have Arthrodaya from my chat on your show. She is a super based woman. She's a doctor of anesthesiology and some sort of other like high. I don't know what she does, but she's been on my stream a couple of times. She's a great guest, and she's a super based woman that has some really good takes on things. And she is one of the women that gave up on relationships as distracting when she was younger, and now is older and kind of looking back on that with a critical eye. So, critical care ICU. She's critical care ICU
Good.
doctor.
We'll stay in touch. Get her.
Yeah, Arthur Dye is a
Give her
great
my
guest. You guys should have her on. She's very polite. I give her a hard time because I think that she is a little too fixated in some specific areas, and that's okay. Yeah, and Arthur Dye doesn't have babies, and she is now realizing that that didn't happen for her. You should be
I'm not
out
laughing at her.
adopting, Arthur Dye. You literally should have 2 children by next month. I don't know why you don't. You're a
I've
you're
got
a
enough to
perfect
split
person to
probably
be
for
it.
everyone. So
I'm sorry.
I said I probably have enough kids to split for everyone. So
There you go. There you go. So we've got anyway, so I apologize, guys, but she would be a great guest for your show. She's very polite, well-spoken, obviously highly educated, and she's a female that went to, now again, on the good side, she paid off, so she got out of, obviously went to medical school, got out of out of that, went to work, worked her butt off, and paid off all of her student loans, about 300 and if I recall, it's about $375,000 worth within a few years. And then she saved up. I think she told in the show, I think she says she saved up about $100,000. She went to buy a house. She could not bring herself to go another $400,000 plus in debt when she just paid off almost $400,000 in debt. So she saved a couple more years, and just live. I think she lives very frugally, and she bought a house in cash. She owns everything she owns. She owns. She has
That's
zero debt.
always better. I do a lot of finance
Master's
stuff.
king.
Oh, I was wrong. $420K in student loans,
Oof.
and she paid it off. So she is a woman you want on your show.
Well,
Yeah, I would enjoy that. My eldest daughter, she's in medical school right now, but I haven't talked to her for, I don't know, 16, 17 years due to the first nasty divorce. So I don't know. I'm hoping to connect with her. She has a baby already, married, and then she went back to medical school, but I don't know what's going on. Still love her, even though I can't connect with her.
Yeah. Guys, also in my chat, I know the robot is telling you that if you donate over $20, it'll trigger the TTS. It won't. That's all off. I'm on a different, it's not my stream, but the robot doesn't know that. So just ignore the robot.
Oh.
Ignore the robot. Bot doesn't know anything. He's stupid. So
one of these days we'll have
Well,
to be important enough to get a robot.
So
Yeah.
do we want to watch the next bit?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go with it.
All right.
Single and complain about how they can't get women. It's such a like weird paradoxical.
And
kind of
here's the
thing.
thing, like I'll even
I don't
see some of
understand.
these people, they'll say like, oh, here's this dating coach that I follow. And
Right, yeah.
here he is in a video with clearly a drunken, floozy woman that they're ridiculing as if like the women like these dating coaches pick up and they show in these videos, like these guys would not be proud of like saying this is my girlfriend. Whereas with us, like for me to say no, like, yeah, it's hilarious to like, you guys don't know anything about women. Like we're all married. And many of us like many of us also successfully dated lots of solid people as we were discerning marriage. And myself, not only am I married, I'm married to someone who's attractive, but who's also really funny and smart. My wife, Laura, you can go to her YouTube channel, Too Far with Laura Horn. Like a lot of these guys think of women as just, oh, women just exist to extract sexual value. That's at Myron in that one clip. Like that's all they're good for. Is just sexual value. And frankly, some Christian men look at it as, well, not just that, like keeping a home and tending children. But I could say, no, my wife is legitimately funny. Not like girl funny where you pander, but like the jokes that Laura would tell on her YouTube channel, people would enjoy it just as much if a man were doing it. Like it's actually really popular and creative stuff that I do think it's just so weird. They have this idea that like, oh no, there are no smart, funny women that I could be friends with and romantically involved with. They just have this prejudice towards women that mirrors the prejudice radical feminists have towards men. And it's just so sad.
I call BS on that whole thing. I don't know any men who really want a wife like that and trivialize everything. They truly want a companion.
Yes.
Well, I think Trent here is once again he falls into this false equivalency. There's a lot wrong. Now the one thing I do agree with him on is I really don't like the pickup artist community. I feel like that it's really where you start getting into being a charlatan and a I just don't agree with it. Now, that said, where do you draw the line between teaching a young man how to be a young man and teaching a young man how to pick up women? It's kind of the same thing in a lot of ways. And a lot of young men don't get it, right? Like, unfortunately, most of the people I know, I'm in the deep South, and most of the people I know, they go to church, they're in scouts, there's all kinds of stuff. But that's a small group. It's not everybody, right? And I know that. So how does a man who's raised by women, so he's basically feral, right? He doesn't know what he's doing. He's lost. How does he learn how to talk to women properly in a way that is stimulating to the women and attractive to women? Because the way that women teach a man to talk to other women is dumb, and it doesn't work.
Yes.
So now his choice is to hopefully find some good friends that he can just kind of learn from, or he goes to one of these pickup artist guys, and he gets a little bit taken advantage of, but maybe he comes out a little bit ahead.
He's
I
going
hate
to get an
saying that.
education. He's going to
I
gain
hate-
some skills,
Yeah,
but
I hate saying
you
it because I
know,
disagree with him, but
yeah, right.
Well, so the question then I think would become, would the skills they gain, and we have to admit that they would, if this is like, to an end justify the means question.
Mhm.
Because if they get the skills and that helps, but they say, well, I'm not going to behave like the pickup artist community does in its entirety.
Mhm.
Is that such a bad thing? I personally, I think so many men out there are so uneducated on women that really, there's a lot of things you can learn that are just going to help you out.
The pickup artists do not teach intent.
Yes.
I mean, they try to.
Some do.
But-
I mean, let's just be honest. Some of them have very cringy motives.
I know what their motives are, but you really can't force your intent on another person.
Oh, you can teach
To
a guy
teach
to be a
them
slime ball.
skills.
You
well,
can definitely teach a guy to be a slime
but
ball. But
that's still going to be a character flaw on his behalf. It's still up to him. It's his responsibility how he uses those skills. Just like if you go into martial arts, and there's something better there. They are teaching discipline, but he's going to learn the skills how to fight. But then he's going to use those skills to gain confidence. And
but when
other
you
things.
learn martial arts, you
some
learn a
can use
code.
it for bad things too.
So it's like when I was going through seminary and grad school, when I finishing up and I was trying to get a pastorate, I was a car salesman for 5 years. What that helped me do was I could talk to pretty much any person that you put in front of me. I'd find a way to talk to them. Sometimes nothing you could do that somebody's just always going to buy, and sometimes somebody's always going to be an a-hole. There's nothing you can do, but you learn how to carry a conversation. And that requires being able to just have a conversation with women. And that's something that is lacking, especially in younger men these days. They can't even look you in the eyes. They can't approach you. They can't look you in the eyes. They can't just express what they're trying to say in a reasonable way or a somewhat smooth way. They don't know how to do open-ended questions, closed-ended questions, stuff like that.
Well, okay,
But it
so
helped me out a lot.
but that actually brings up an interesting question that I just thought of. We have all these single mommies out there raising all these feral men, and yet all these men cannot talk to women. I mean, they're raised by mommy. How can they, what is it that, we keep saying that, we have to put the children with the mom. The mom is the best teacher for the children. And all this single mom bullshit that gets spread throughout media and the culture. And it's like, and yet we have the fewest number of men who know how to talk to women just in they like walk up to the girl and you can see them shaking. Like, come on. What's the worst she can do? Say no? I don't know, Nick. What do you think about that? Or what does the panel
Well,
think about that?
I have the opposite problem. I have to beat them off. So
You
I
know
think
what?
that
to
As
be
a
left
young-
alone half the time.
I think that men have always had a problem talking to women. It's just part of being a man. You are, especially men that are around other men a lot. They really do not talk to women in a way that women are used to being talked to. However, I don't see a problem with that because honestly, I think most women like to be talked to in a way that they're not used to being talked to, and they find that when you talk to them like another woman does, they lose all interest. So, I don't know, guys. Again, I hate to give the pickup artist community any credit whatsoever because, to be honest with you, they're slimy. I don't agree with their methods. I don't really agree with most of them because I really do find them to be really just not good people. But on the other side of that, it is something that it is something where who else is going to do it, right? You can tell a young man to go to church and join a men's youth group and go out and pray together and all of that's going to be great. But that's probably not actually going to help him talk to women.
It's just a matter of kind of forcing him, encouraging him, or acquiring him to go out and just approach and talk to a lot of women. You can do it in the gas station. You're standing behind him in line. Like a lady is bringing out all her change to make, paying in nickels and quarters. All you got to do is turn to her and say, "Have you been saving up for this purchase very long?" And she'll look at you and she'll just laugh. Okay, that's an interaction. And the other thing is, I didn't realize this as a young man, but as insecure as I felt inside, women actually are more insecure than you are. They're just better at putting up a facade.
So one thing I find is like I go to grocery stores. I hate doing the self checkout. If there's a person there, I always go and approach the person, let them ring me up, and I usually can have some sort of conversation with them. Sometimes they make me laugh, sometimes I can make them laugh, sometimes they flirt, sometimes I might flirt a little back, but it's harmless
Hey,
and it's enjoyable.
and if
Makes them have a better day. Usually you feel like you start having a better day yourself. So
young men are worried about approaching young women, hey, strike up a conversation with a woman that's twice your age. I mean, the older women, they like to have conversations. And it's just getting used to striking up a conversation. If you can get that down, you probably don't need to go learn anything from a pickup artist. Just learn how to strike up a conversation.
yep.
Well, and one thing I want to say is we're not shy here about picking up bits of wisdom, even from people we don't agree with. If the pickup artists are teaching guys how to talk to women, and we have to acknowledge that, what, that's probably better than not learning how. So it's part of the reason that it's difficult for us to say that we are red pill directly, because we'll pull from a much broader net than just the sort of red pill gospel, if you will. All right. So, Grid 1, do you need to head out, or because we're at an hour?
I just sent a message to my wife to find out if what she has going on. She's actually really concerned that her flight's going to get canceled, which is totally fine. It is totally cool if it does. But she'll be unhappy about it, but I won't.
So in another life, I was a pilot. How many times have they delayed it so far?
It's like twice.
Okay, you'll probably get one more delay, and after that delay, it's pretty much done. They're probably having a staffing issue, and they can't find a flight crew for the plane.
That's probably true. I'm actually a pilot myself, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Not a commercial pilot. I play with airplanes.
I have my commercial license, and I was on track to get my CFI, and I started my CFI training in September 2008. So you can kind of guess how that all went.
Yeah.
So if you can hang on, we'll keep going. But
I just I mean, she's really bad about paying attention to her phone, so which is weird, but
That's true of every woman I've encountered. I mean, if I'm not Johnny on the spot with a response, I'm in trouble. But
Yeah.
they're allowed to go hours.
Yeah. No, it's and I think there may be a weather delay as well. I think they've got some storms north of us. So yeah, whatever.
Okay.
We'll find
Yeah.
out.
Well.
We'll find out
Yeah.
what's going on in a minute.
All
But
right.
I think what I am going to do, it's been a good talk, and I'm just going to talk for just a couple more minutes, and then I'll.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to when I end when I clock out, it will redirect the 24, 25, however many people from my unadvertised stream over to you guys, because I didn't have time to advertise this or anything. So
Oh, no worries.
I just swear that these are just people that get the notification and come to my streams. So, so I and I kind of lost where we were at, what we were talking about. One of the things that I think that Horn always glosses over. Okay, she said almost, so I got probably a couple minutes. One of the things that Horn, I think, always glosses over is the fact that women instigate most of the divorce, and in I think it's something like 80% of the cases, the reason that they're giving is that they're bored, that they're no longer, that they fell out of love, they're bored, they're just not into it anymore, whatever. And I feel like that is an issue that is it's an issue. I don't know that I don't know how to solve it. Okay. I mean, I wish I did. I wish I could tell you that, there was a magic bullet that we could just, or a pill, or, an elixir or something that we could take to fix that. But unfortunately, I just don't know. I don't know how to go about it. And most of the time, and I go back to this and a lot of these are, in that, these women, they get married young and they suffer along, and they're home alone a lot, they're and then of course they finally make it, and then now they're home alone. They're home alone, and they've got money, and they want to go places and do things, but they can't, right? Because the husband still has to work, and he's got things to do, and he's got to be places, and the wife maybe has to work, and she has to be places, and so what is it that Brian's always harping on, the ick. They get the ick, right?
Oh yeah, nothing you can do.
And so the next thing you know, they're filing for divorce, and they're like, well, you know what, we just grew apart. But you really didn't actually grow apart. You just decided one day that you've grown apart, right? Because if you were growing apart, then you would realize that, and you could fix it. You would understand how to take care of it, but you didn't. You didn't care about that. So, at the end of the day, and I've watched this happen to a couple of my friends that have been married for years. That when they got divorced, it's almost always the most brutal thing possible. It's really terrible, and I just don't understand how he can talk so much about pickup artistry and how we're deceiving women, and all of men are deceiving women, and women are falling for their BS, and men control this and women control that, and all this nonsense. It occurs to me that he always talks about this. He very rarely touches on divorce, probably because in the Catholic Church, obviously divorce is one of those things that just, they don't like to have happen, and they don't like to admit it happens. So that's a problem for him. And, but it does, and it's a real thing. And I've watched people go through it, and it's terrible. And I think all of you guys have been through it, right? The little bio that I got, all of you guys had been through it at least once.
Yep.
So
yeah, me twice, the other two guys once, and
Yeah.
Plutarch is remarried. So
Yeah,
so
I went and did it again.
yeah, right. And I think that it's I think in our modern world, again, I go back to I just don't know. I don't see the advantage to a lot of the things that we are told. And I feel like that there's a there's a disconnect right now, and I'm not sure that red pill really fulfills it, but it certainly, the tenets of red pill are a good base to start, right? You know,
Well,
the man
red
needs
pill
to,
says don't get married. But marriage is the foundation of
I don't know that red,
civilization.
I
does it,
agree.
does red I don't think red pill says don't get married. I think Rollo says don't get married. But red, the tenets of red pill is, go be a good, to build yourself into a good husband or husband material, whatever that is supposed to mean. But and again, I'll give you as parting shots just so I can get out of here. When I first heard of red pill, I thought, this is great, because what it basically said for young men was, get in shape, get your money right, live a good life, go to church, find a group of people that have, like-minded people, maybe get involved with your local government a little bit, right? Understand what's going on in the world around you. Be aware of your surroundings, right? And I thought that was great. I think that's the way all men should live. I've always, as a matter of fact, I never knew that men lived otherwise until I was in college. And then, boy, that was cool. But somewhere along the way, red pill's been corrupted and gamed to, you shouldn't get married because why? And this is Myron's bullshit. Again, look, the guys that the guys that say this shit are not bound by morals. So they can say whatever they want, right? They can say that I would never sign a contract where the other person is rewarded for breaking it. That is good, sound business principle, 100%. And actually, one of the guys in the chat right now, Viking Paradigm, he works for Fresh and Fit. Anyway, so he'll call me out here in just 1 minute. Soon as he gets his spaceship fueled up, he'll call me out. But and look, I got nothing against those guys, but it just got pushed out another 20 minutes, my wife's flight. So that's a third strike. But so at the end of the day, they have no moral grounds for those appeals. So it doesn't matter what they say it doesn't matter that they make that reference, right? Because they have no morality to do so. So who cares? I believe that morally, we have a responsibility to form that bond and contract with each other if we're going to live with each other as man and wife, or as man and woman, or however you want to look at it. I believe that's my belief. Okay. I'm not, and I won't prescribe that to anybody. That's not, you can do whatever the hell you want. You can run around in loincloths for all I care. I don't give a shit. But at the end of the day, this is what my religion says you need to do, is that if you love your woman, you make her an honest woman by marrying her, right? I'm paraphrasing a lot. Sorry.
Well, no worries. A question for you on that, because I had a thought. It kind of sounds like you're advocating for what we used to call a strong rule of law. Like strong contract law, where contracts would be enforced. Strong, like, I hate to harken back to earlier times, but it kind of sounds that way, where you're saying, like.
No, I don't go that far. I'm a constitutional conservative, so I don't believe that any of the laws are valid that aren't specifically listed in the Constitution, except for state law, right? So I don't. So I'm a constitutional conservative. That's how I roll. However, what I am advocating for is that morally, I have to get married.
Right.
You understand? Like,
yeah,
I understand.
I didn't say that the state has to recognize my marriage.
Okay.
I just said I have to get married. right? Now, if I have to get married in a, if that's the law and then I have to follow the law, then I have to follow the law, right? Regardless whether or not I recognize the law, I have to follow the law, right? Because there are men with guns that will enforce that law. So therefore, regardless of my personal stance on it, it has no bearing on anything. Okay. So I'm not advocating for force of law. I'm just acknowledging the fact that exists, and it's real. Believe me, it happens. But
so, a question: are you breaking the law if you form a covenant marriage in a church, but do not register it with the state?
As near as I can tell, not in most states. And I think that there were like 10, somebody in the chat will correct me. There were like 10 states that still had common law marriage. That if you held yourself out as husband and wife, you were, in the eyes of the law, married. And therefore you were subject to all of the rules of marriage.
I'm in one of them.
You are? Okay. I don't know how many are left.
Yeah.
I know that it's fewer and fewer every year.
Texas is common law. Texas is common law.
Tennessee used to be, but I don't think we are anymore. But we're a weird state. Alabama apparently got Anson Knowles, who's run for office down in Alabama, has said that Alabama got rid of common law marriage a couple of years ago. I believe him on that. More and more states are kind of getting rid of it because it's kind of an out, and it's very messy to determine what is and what is not common law. So, 7 states and DC have common law. See, I got a really great chat. I mean, those guys are on top of it. But see, I don't have to know anything because I got those guys backing me up, right? And but now here's the thing. Let me throw this out to you. Is the problem with the state? There's a problem with the state presiding over marriage, but is it really the fact that they preside over marriage, or is it they preside over divorce? And our current structure is that no fault divorces are the norm.
That's the problem. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll say yes.
Okay. Right.
They're enforcing abominations instead of the right use of marriage. So
none of us would have a problem with our marriage being signed up for with the state. So our wife gets our death benefits. She gets our any kind of other issues, anything that we want for her to have like that. Nobody has any problem with that. Our problem is on the other side of the aisle when she decides to divorce us. That if she decides to divorce us, then she can just walk away for no reason whatsoever, and in most states take a significant amount of your wealth.
Yeah, well, let me say it this way: when she is done and files divorce, the state uses their force to dissolve the marriage and give her money instead of using their force to affirm the contract and find a means to either resolve or, there's no force to maintain the contract. The force is used to dissolve the contract.
Yeah.
Which is actually an uncommon use of contract law. Most law is used to enforce contracts, if you think in a business standpoint. So it's kind of a perversion of our legal system.
So I in my personal bend is that I was ever only going to get married once anyway. So if something really wild was to happen and my wife and I were to get divorced, I would never remarry, and it would just be the end of it. But it's not something I even really ponder. However, I do believe that the state's ability to enforce the divorce ends really pretty much at the door of the courthouse, right? Like that, it should just be able to say you're married or you're not married. It should not have the ability to say, well, you get half his shit, or sell everything and you divide the money, or any of that, right? Like it really shouldn't have that ability, but it does. And with no fault divorce, it doesn't matter if she cheated on you every day of the year. That has no bearing in reality whatsoever. It matters with kids, right? To some degree, but even then, I don't know, guys. It's a broken system. It's a very broken system, and it's not going to get fixed. And to be honest with you, it's not going to get fixed until more people really talk about, getting rid of no fault divorce and stop this insanity of paying women out of, just for no reason. Right.
Well, as they say, don't pay him to leave.
Men. I mean, we always kind of default to men, but there are women out there that have married men that are, that would be destitute without them, and the dude divorces her and takes, half of her crap, right? So I mean, it's both sides. Obviously, more predominantly on the male side. However, you must acknowledge both sides, and I do.
Well, I think that actually happened to Halle Berry. She was married to a guy much lower status, much lower income. I think she has to pay him like $50,000 a month now or something like that. So
yeah,
it does happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree with most of what's been said. I'm going to end up having to jump off here, but
okay.
Again, it was a great, very truncated discussion. Unfortunately, I go long, guys. I want to get into the meat of the material, and I know that's probably really frustrating because we didn't even make it to the end of your clips there. I apologize for that.
It doesn't matter because we're in here to have the discussion.
Yeah,
and
well,
however long it takes. Yeah, sometimes we try and cram a lot in, but the discussions are where the fun is. And so, for your viewers, we would love to have them as subscribers to our channel.
Yeah, we should. What should happen is I'm going to end my side of the live stream, and everybody should magically appear over here. And you guys have a great night.
Stream. We don't do these long streams. We do, an hour to 2 hours, 2 nights a week.
So you guys, just so you guys know, if you want to catch my stream, I normally do Monday and Thursday, noon until 2 Central Standard Time. I then do Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday nights, 8:05 until whenever I decide to quit. I'm just like, I'm done. And we've done 6.5, 8 hour streams before, no problem. But the day shift is like 2 hours, and I do that, and I typically do that Monday and Thursday. This week, because my son is shooting the state finals in clay targets, he's we're on the field every day. So I don't know that I'm going to be able to stream during the day at all. So, but I'll figure that out. We'll keep that up. I'm going to go ahead and bid you guys a good night. Hopefully all my guys come over here and have a great time with you guys. And you guys enjoy the rest of your night. It was good talking to you, and we'll do it again.
Good talking to you. Good talking to you too.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
Yeah, bye.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. We do have more we can go through here.
Let's go through a little bit more. Then.
Yeah. All right. So we're on the next one.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. I remember there was this tweet a while ago that went kind of viral where somebody said it's better to marry a woman who is, his language was semi-retarded, was find a woman who can't think well. And as if they're not human beings. Like, because you want her to just be, yeah, your housekeeper, or you just want her to do whatever you do. Like my
Oh, yeah.
like first date with my wife, no, this was second date. We went to a coffee shop by campus, and we talked about what she was reading in Derrida, and we talked about the dating of Matthew's gospel. We're a little odd, but it was the intellectual connection of, like, we can debate weird ideas and talk about them, but there is a perception that if a woman is like that, she's being like a man, and you are, I don't know, like submitting to her and not being the head of the household if you think she has any valuable ideas. And it's funny that you say humor, because I feel like that's the one that I always hear, is like, women are not funny. And if you think a woman is funny, that somehow is like the signal that you're a simp.
Yeah.
Mm.
It is.
So we can stop there. Okay. What do you guys think?
Well, he mentions Derrida, so automatically I've got flags flying because that dude is not okay. I don't know if people know. I mean, he's a French philosopher. He is known for deconstructionism, if that sounds familiar at all. So, I mean, if this guy down here at the bottom is debating Derrida,